Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes.
Yes.
We love bringing you these explorations of fascinating topics, and today we're doing something
A little
a
different.
little different. We want to introduce our English-speaking listeners to some incredible thinkers and ideas from the Spanish-speaking world.
Absolutely.
There's so much brilliant work out there, and
Yeah,
we believe everyone should have access to it.
for sure.
To guide us on this journey, we have an expert who's incredible at distilling complex ideas,
I try.
especially when it comes to different cultures and perspectives.
Oh, thank you.
Today we're exploring the work of Dr. Marian Rojas,
Yes.
a prominent Spanish psychiatrist. She's got some powerful insights on how to manage stress, navigate those negative influences we all encounter, and find meaning in our crazy, fast-paced world.
It's so important, especially now, to be equipped with the tools to handle those things. Dr. Rojas Estepe really gets to the heart of it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Dr. Rojas starts by talking about something I think we can all relate to: toxic people. You know, those individuals who just seem to trigger our alert mode and leave us feeling drained.
And it's not just a feeling. She points out how these interactions flood our bodies with cortisol, the stress hormone. Now, cortisol isn't inherently bad.
Right.
Think about it like this. You're about to give a big presentation, and you feel those butterflies in your stomach. That's cortisol kicking in, giving you that extra boost of energy and focus.
Makes sense. But I'm guessing it's not supposed to be an all-the-time feeling.
Exactly. It becomes a problem when we're constantly exposed to stressors like these toxic people. Dr. Rojas Estepe talks about, imagine feeling that pre-presentation nervousness 24/7.
Oh, gosh.
That's when cortisol can start to do real damage, suppressing our immune system, increasing inflammation, and even messing with our gut health, which we know is crucial to our overall well-being.
Wow. I hadn't really connected those dots before. It reminds me of that story Dr. Rojas shares about the woman who was constantly criticized by her own mother. It really highlights that it's not always about big dramatic events. Sometimes it's those subtle, everyday interactions that can really chip away at us.
That's such a powerful example, and Dr. Rojas Estepe offers some really practical strategies for managing these situations. It all starts with awareness, recognizing who and what triggers that stress response in you. From there, it's about setting boundaries to protect your emotional energy.
Boundaries are so important. And sometimes even being strategic about when you interact with certain people can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. It's not always about cutting people out of your life entirely, but learning how to navigate those interactions in a way that preserves your well-being. She also talks about the power of forgiveness, not condoning their behavior, but releasing yourself from that burden of resentment.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Dr. Rojas also observes something really interesting about our society, this addiction to immediacy and superficiality. It's like we're bombarded with information and stimulation, constantly chasing that next hit of excitement or validation.
Right, and she ties this to the dopamine crisis. Dopamine is that feel-good neurotransmitter that gets released when we experience pleasure or reward.
Right.
Think about the satisfaction of crossing something off your to-do list or the excitement of receiving a text message.
I can definitely relate to that.
But here's the thing. In today's world, with constant access to social media, entertainment, and instant gratification, we're essentially flooding our brains with dopamine. And that constant stimulation makes it harder and harder for us to focus, delay gratification, and find satisfaction in things that require more effort or patience.
So we're actually training our brains to crave those quick bursts of dopamine, which makes it harder to appreciate the more subtle, long-term rewards that come from things like deep thinking, meaningful relationships, or pursuing our passions.
Yeah. Exactly. And Dr. Rojas Cepeda uses this thought-provoking analogy of the matrix, that choice between the blue pill, which keeps you in comfortable ignorance, and the red pill, which reveals the harsh reality. She asks if we feel trapped in a similar cycle, chasing those fleeting rewards instead of facing what truly matters.
Ooh, that hits home. It's so easy to get caught up in the busyness and distractions to always feel like we're reacting instead of truly living.
It is. And Dr. Rojas Estepe argues that this constant state of distraction and instant gratification contributes to what she calls a prefrontal cortex crisis.
Okay, now you have to explain that one.
Our prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and critical thinking.
Right.
It's what allows us to set goals, regulate our emotions, and make thoughtful choices. But when we're constantly bombarded with distractions and instant gratification, our prefrontal cortex doesn't get the workout it needs. It's like a muscle that weakens without exercise.
So we're basically losing our ability to think deeply and critically. That's scary.
It's concerning for sure, because it impacts our ability to address complex issues, engage in meaningful conversations, and even connect with ourselves on a deeper level.
So we've got toxic people, cortisol overload, a dopamine crisis, and a prefrontal cortex crisis. It's a lot to digest. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Dr. Rojas Estape has this surprising message about embracing pain. She actually argues that constantly avoiding discomfort can be detrimental to our well-being. I have to admit that one threw me for a loop.
Right. It seems counterintuitive. We're wired to avoid pain. But she's not saying we should seek out suffering. It's more about recognizing that small doses of discomfort, the kind that pushes us outside our comfort zones, can actually build resilience and lead to greater satisfaction in the long run.
So it's not about masochism. It's about understanding that growth often comes from pushing past those moments of discomfort.
Exactly. Think about it this way. When we avoid anything that might cause us discomfort, we're essentially limiting our experiences and our potential for growth. It's like staying in a tiny room your whole life because you're afraid of what's outside.
I love the analogy she uses of the Camino de Santiago, that famous pilgrimage across Spain. It's physically demanding, but people who complete it often talk about the profound sense of accomplishment and well-being they feel. It's that feeling of having overcome a challenge, of having endured discomfort, that leads to a deeper sense of satisfaction.
It's a perfect example of how pushing through discomfort can lead to a greater sense of purpose and fulfillment.
So how do we put this idea of embracing discomfort into practice in our daily lives?
Dr. Rojas Estape suggests a few things. One is dopamine fasting, which is intentionally limiting those instant gratification activities to reset our reward system. It's like hitting the reset button on our brains and retraining ourselves to appreciate the simpler things.
That's like a digital detox.
Exactly. And she also talks about cultivating flow states, those moments of intense focus and enjoyment where we lose track of time.
That reminds me of when I'm writing, I can get so absorbed in the process that I completely forget about everything else going on around me.
That's it. Think about activities that you find both challenging and engaging, things that really draw you in and make you lose all sense of time. Those are flow states, and they're incredibly rewarding for both our minds and our souls.
I'm starting to see how embracing those moments of discomfort, whether it's through dopamine fasting or pushing ourselves to get into a flow state, can actually lead to greater fulfillment.
Exactly. And perhaps most importantly, Dr. Rojas Estape encourages us to ask ourselves some difficult questions. What gives our lives meaning? What are we doing to cultivate our own well-being and that of those around us? These are the questions that can guide us toward a more meaningful and purposeful life.
Wow, we've covered so much ground. We've talked about toxic people, cortisol overload, a dopamine crisis, the importance of embracing discomfort, and the search for meaning in a world that can often feel pretty meaningless.
It is a lot to take in, but Dr. Rojas Estape's insights are incredibly valuable, and we're just getting started.
And speaking of getting started, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more of Dr. Rojas Estape's incredible wisdom in part 2 of our deep dive thought.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
We're picking up right where we left off with Dr. Marian Rojas Estape's insights on stress dopamine and finding meaning in our modern world.
You know, before the break, we were talking about how important it is to seek help when we need it.
Right.
And to address both our mental and physical health.
It's all connected, right?
Yeah.
And Dr. Rojas Estape really drives that point home.
She does. And one of the things she emphasizes is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Of course.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
It's about finding what resonates with you, what helps you cultivate a sense of well-being.
It's about personalizing our approach to healing and growth.
Exactly. And it's about being patient with ourselves.
Right.
Healing takes time.
Sure.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Now, I want to circle back to something Dr. Rojas Estape mentioned that I found really intriguing.
Yeah.
This idea of liberating oxytocin.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means and why it's so important?
Of course. Oxytocin is often called the love hormone or the cuddle hormone.
Okay.
It's released when we experience social bonding, trust, and connection. It plays a key role in relationships, intimacy, and even childbirth.
So it's not just about romantic love, right? It's about feeling connected to others,
Yeah.
feeling a sense of belonging.
Precisely. And in a world that often feels isolating and disconnected, finding ways to boost our oxytocin levels is crucial for our well-being.
So how do we do that? How do we liberate oxytocin?
Dr. Rojas Estape talks about the importance of physical touch.
Okay.
Hugs, holding hands, even just a pat on the back. These simple acts of connection can have a profound impact on our mood and our sense of well-being.
Interesting. And it's not just physical touch, right?
Right. It's also about spending quality time with loved ones, engaging in meaningful conversations, and expressing gratitude can also boost our oxytocin levels.
It's about nurturing those social connections that bring us joy and make us feel supported.
Exactly. And when we cultivate these positive connections,
Yeah.
it creates a ripple effect,
Okay.
spreading kindness and compassion to those around us.
It's like we're all interconnected.
Yes.
And our actions and emotions can influence those around us.
Precisely. And that brings us to another key point that Dr. Rojas Estapé emphasizes: the importance of finding meaning and purpose in our lives.
This seems to be a recurring theme in her work, and it's something we've touched on throughout our deep dive.
It is, and it's because finding meaning is essential for our well-being. When we have a sense of purpose, a reason for getting out of bed in the morning, it gives our lives direction and motivation.
It's that feeling of contributing to something larger than ourselves, of making a difference in the world.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be some grand world-changing mission. It can be as simple as pursuing our passions,
Right.
helping others, or simply being present and engaged in our daily lives.
So how do we find that meaning? How do we figure out what our purpose is?
Dr. Rojas Estapé talks about the importance of asking ourselves those difficult questions. What are we passionate about? What brings us joy? What are our values?
Those are big questions.
They are. These are the questions that can guide us towards a more meaningful life. And they're not always easy to answer.
Right.
It takes introspection, reflection, and sometimes even some trial and error.
It's a journey of self-discovery.
It is. And it's a journey worth taking. Because when we align our lives with our values and our passions,
Yeah.
it brings a sense of fulfillment that no amount of external validation can provide.
It's about living authentically and intentionally.
Exactly. And that's a powerful message, especially in a world that often tells us to chase external markers of success.
Okay, so we've talked about managing stress, cultivating positive connections, finding meaning and purpose. That's a lot to take in.
It is.
But Dr. Rojas Estapé also offers some practical tips for putting these ideas into action.
She does. And she emphasizes the importance of small, consistent steps. It's not about making radical changes overnight. It's about incorporating small, sustainable habits into our daily lives.
What kinds of habits are we talking about?
She talks about the importance of sleep,
Of course,
exercise, and a healthy diet.
the basics.
These are the foundations of well-being. They support our physical and mental health, and they give us the energy and resilience we need to navigate the challenges of life.
I think we all know that we should be doing those things, but it's always good to be reminded.
Absolutely. And she also emphasizes the importance of mindfulness,
Okay.
paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
That could be tough.
It can. But mindfulness helps us break free from those patterns of negative thinking and rumination. It allows us to appreciate the simple things in life and to cultivate a sense of gratitude.
And she talks about the power of nature, right?
Yes, spending time outdoors, connecting with the natural world.
Nature is so good for the soul.
It really is. Nature has this incredible ability to soothe our souls and reduce stress. It's a reminder that we're part of something larger than ourselves, and it can help us gain perspective on our problems.
It's like hitting the reset button on our minds and bodies.
Exactly. And all of these practices, sleep, exercise, healthy diet, mindfulness, nature,
Okay, yeah.
they work together to create a foundation of well-being that allows us to thrive.
So it's about taking care of ourselves.
Yes.
Mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that well-being is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, challenges and setbacks.
For sure.
But with the right tools and support, we can navigate those challenges and cultivate a life of meaning, purpose, and joy.
I love that. You know, something that really struck me about Dr. Rojas Estapé's work is that she doesn't shy away from talking about spirituality.
You're right. She acknowledges the importance of connecting with something larger than ourselves, whether that's through religion,
Yeah.
nature, or simply a sense of awe and wonder at the world around us.
She talks about the importance of transcendence,
Yes.
mind beyond our everyday experiences and connecting with a deeper sense of meaning and purpose.
And she doesn't prescribe a specific path. It's about finding what resonates with you,
Right.
what helps you connect with that sense of the sacred.
It's about recognizing that we're not just physical beings. We're spiritual beings as well.
Exactly. And nurturing that spiritual side is essential for living a fulfilling and meaningful life.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into Dr. Rojas Estapé's work, what are some key takeaways that you hope our listeners will remember?
Well, I think one of the most important takeaways is that we have more control over our well-being than we often realize.
Okay.
We can make choices that support our mental and physical health, cultivate resilience, and find meaning even in the midst of challenges.
It's about empowering ourselves to take charge of our own well-being.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that well-being is a holistic endeavor. It's not just about our minds or our bodies. It's
Ah.
about the interconnectedness of all aspects of our being: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
And it's about being patient with ourselves.
Yes,
Healing takes time.
it does.
Growth takes effort.
For sure.
And there will be setbacks along the way.
Definitely.
But the journey itself is worth it.
I couldn't agree more. So as we head into part 3 of our deep dive, I encourage our listeners to reflect on what resonated with them, what sparked their curiosity, and what they might want to explore further in their own lives.
We'll be back soon with more insights from Dr. Rojas Estepe. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the work of Dr. Marian Rojas Estepe.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
It really has. We've covered so much ground, from managing stress and dopamine to the importance of connection and meaning.
And in this final segment, we're going to delve into some of the strategies Dr. Rojas Estepe suggests for putting all of this into practice, for actually cultivating well-being in our daily lives.
I love that, because sometimes it can feel overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Like, we hear all this great advice,
Right.
but then it's like, okay, but how do I actually do this?
Exactly. And Dr. Rojas Estepe is really great at bridging that gap between theory and practice.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things she emphasizes is the importance of having a life project.
Okay. What exactly does she mean by that?
It's about having a sense of purpose, a direction in life.
Okay.
Something that motivates you, gives you a reason to get out of bed each morning,
Right.
and helps you make decisions that are aligned with what truly matters to you.
It's like having that North Star guiding you.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be something grand or extraordinary. It
Oh,
can
yeah.
be anything that gives your life meaning.
What?
Whether that's raising a family, building a business, pursuing a creative passion, contributing to your community, or something else entirely.
So it's about identifying what lights you up and then letting that purpose inform your choices?
Exactly. And she emphasizes that this life project can evolve over time.
Right.
What might have been important to you 5 years ago might not be as important today. And that's okay.
I think that's such an important point.
Yeah.
Because we often put so much pressure on ourselves to have it all figured out.
Right. It's about being open to growth and change and allowing our life project to evolve as we do.
Now, along with having that life project, Dr. Rojas Estepe also talks about the importance of setting goals.
Yes.
But she's got a very specific approach to goal setting.
Yes. She emphasizes setting goals that are both challenging and attainable.
Okay.
It's about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone,
Right.
but not setting yourself up for failure.
Because if our goals are too unrealistic, we're more likely to get discouraged and give up.
Exactly. And that can actually be detrimental to our well-being. So it's about being ambitious, but also being kind to ourselves.
And celebrating our progress along the way,
Yes,
no matter how small.
absolutely. Acknowledging our accomplishments, even the little ones, can boost our motivation and keep us moving forward.
Now, something else that stood out to me in Dr. Rojas Estepe's work is the emphasis on mindset.
Yeah.
She talks a lot about cultivating a positive mindset.
Yes, our mindset, or the way we think about ourselves and the world around us, has a huge impact on our well-being.
Of course.
You know that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so true. Our thoughts shape our reality. So if we can cultivate a more positive mindset,
Right.
focusing on our strengths, practicing gratitude, and reframing negative thoughts, it can make a world of difference.
It's about choosing to see the glass as half full rather than half empty.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean ignoring the challenges or pretending that everything is perfect. It's about approaching those challenges with a more optimistic and solution-oriented mindset.
So much of it comes down to that perspective shift, right?
It really does. And along with cultivating a positive mindset, Dr. Rojas Estepe also talks about the importance of surrounding ourselves with positive influences.
This reminds me of what we were discussing earlier about toxic people and setting boundaries.
Exactly. It's about being intentional about the company we keep and making sure that the people we spend time with are lifting us up, supporting us, and inspiring us.
Because as we all know, energy is contagious.
It really is. So it's about being mindful of who and what we allow into our lives.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It's amazing how Dr. Rojas Estepe weaves together so many different threads, from stress management and dopamine to meaning and purpose and relationships.
It's a truly holistic approach to well-being, and I think it's incredibly valuable, especially in today's world.
I couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up this incredible journey, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think Dr. Rojas Astape sums it up perfectly when she says, no limites tus retos, reto tus limites, which means don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits.
I love that. It's about embracing growth,
Mm,
pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zones, and striving to become the best versions of ourselves.
exactly. It's about remembering that this journey of self-discovery and well-being is a lifelong adventure.
Yeah.
It's not a destination, it's a process.
And it's a process worth embracing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to our listeners out there, keep challenging yourselves, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep into those fascinating ideas that can enrich your lives.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the work of Dr. Marian Rojas Astape, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more explorations of incredible thinkers and ideas from around the world.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive. Until then, take care.